there, guys. Welcome back to another episode of E&Ftv. Today, we are joined by my very good friend, Emily Goldfischer, who is founder and editor-in-chief of Hertelier. Emily, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
No, it's good to have you with us. Obviously you and I have partnered, or you came to an event that we were holding that I was really excited about, which was our Women in Hospitality event, held at the Landmark Hotel. So thanks very much to the Landmark. But I remember first speaking to you I was just saying off camera, in the lobby of the Peninsula Hotel. And you and I were talking about the event that I wanted to do and all the rest of it. And I said to you back then, I would love to get you on the channel. I'm so happy that we've finally been able to do this.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And I remember that too. And it's so exciting to see this to have us come together for this conversation. And I'm a big fan of your
Absolutely.
show.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Well, Emily, without further ado, I want to get into it, hear all about your story, your background, and obviously touch on a few things that have been going on within the space that you operate in. Just before I do that, though, I just want to say to everybody watching, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We are bringing you weekly content with fantastic guests, just like Emily. And to do that, we need a community to obviously support us. So please do click that subscribe button. Let us know what you think about this episode down in the comments below. And don't forget to press that like button. So, Emily, without further ado, let's get into it. What I'd love to hear
Yeah.
first off is just a bit about you, your background, obviously what brought you to starting Hertelier.
Yeah, thank you, Thomas. So I actually studied hotel management in college. I went to Cornell in the States.
Yeah.
Some of your listeners may recognize my accent as being American and not English, even though I've been living in London for 13 years.
Oh wow, right.
But
So it hasn't the accent hasn't rubbed off on you just yet then.
hasn't rubbed off. Yeah, I mean, the closest I might get is a few vocabulary words here and there, but definitely not at Madonna levels when she was with Guy
No,
Ritchie,
understood.
when she kind of had a English accent. But yeah, so my background, I started out doing PR and marketing for hotels and resorts. On the agency side, I worked for some amazing women there at a firm called KWE Associates. And one of my big clients there was Hyatt Resorts, and I helped them introduce a golf program, a kids program. And from there, I actually was recruited to go and help Lowe's Hotels launch some of their branded programs.
Mm,
So I went to become the corporate VP for PR at Lowe's Hotels, which is a US brand that at the time I was there had about 20, 25 hotels.
right.
And it was a really exciting time to be there. They had just opened the Lowe's Miami Beach, which was like kind of the iconic Miami Beach hotel that
Mm,
restarted the development and elevation of that as a very exciting tourism destination of Florida. Of course, Miami's
amazing.
like on fire now. It's like got so many new hotels and there's so much growth there.
Mm,
Uh, and yeah, so I helped them open up hotels at Universal Orlando and in Philadelphia and New Orleans. And I was there for 10 years and I loved it. And I had some incredible female bosses, Charlotte St. Martin, Sherry Lavaroni. We had amazing female leadership. And then, of course, Nancy
yeah.
Mendelson, who is now my partner at Hertelier. But um, from there, we moved to the UK for my husband's job, and
Mhm,
I sort of flipped to the other side of the coin and became a journalist,
right.
focused on luxury travel. And
Amazing.
and it's been amazing because of course when we moved to London, it was 2010, and it was just before the Olympics. So there was a tremendous amount of activity
Yeah.
and new hotels being built. And it was a really exciting time just personally to be in London. My
Yeah.
kids were small. So yeah, so it was like just really fun for us. And we thought we would be here for 2 years.
Mm,
So this is why the journalism was like a really nice fit because it just allowed me to kind of continue on with my career in a different form.
yeah.
And then fast forward, we really liked living here
Mm,
and we ended up staying. And so I started to notice that there were more women getting leadership positions in what previously had been a very male oriented industry
mm,
in leadership. Now, hospitality, if you look at the statistics, is about 50% or more, 60, even sometimes 70% women at the entry levels.
Mm.
But then as you get into the leadership roles, it's like 1 in 11. So I noticed though that there was a movement, and it was like women of my generation and kind of just, let's say, 5 or 10 years older than me,
Mm.
who were getting these top jobs. And then and that I didn't feel that the media was really covering it. So when the
Sure.
pandemic hit, I thought to myself, you know what? Nobody's really tackling this. I've got time on my hands now because obviously I couldn't travel like the rest of the world.
Sure.
And I just thought, let's give it a go. And with Nancy Mendelson, my partner,
Yeah.
we launched this website in March of 2021. So we just celebrated 3 years. And it kind of took off. Like people were really interested. We had some amazing interviews with different women, sharing their stories, their advice, their experiences in
Mm.
ways that it just wasn't being covered elsewhere. So I think
Sure.
that also was like a very, our interviews are very real. And I think that's what's drawn in our audience. And since then, we've really grown. Um, we've got almost 7,000 followers on LinkedIn. I encourage your
Yeah.
listeners to and viewers to give us a
Yeah.
follow. We do a weekly newsletter that rounds up kind of all news from the internet that is, interesting in my view to women in business. And then also we round up what stories we've written on Hertelier. So um, I encourage people to sign up for that. It's free and people
Amazing.
love it. We have like a 75% open rate on our newsletter. And then, on the site, we publish about 3 stories a week. We do a variety of interviews. We also
Yeah.
cover events that are
Yeah.
for women and things like that. So that's kind of where we're at. I mean, we've done over 500 articles, actually almost 550.
Wow.
Um, and yeah, I mean, I think that the readers really just appreciate our fresh voice and our
Mm.
authentic approach. And we also address and raise the discourse on issues that affect women.
Yeah.
So that can be childcare. We did an amazing story. We actually had a guest contributor who did a story about hair care and uniforms and requirements for Black women when they are working in hospitality jobs. So that was a real eye-opening one. Also, when women choose not to have kids, one of our more popular stories was about child-free women and like
Sure.
women face judgment. And that's something we like to talk about because, one way to kind of move the needle forward is to really just like talk about things.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. I was going to say, I mean, in terms of the impact or the positive impact that you feel Hertelier has had on the industry, what do you think that would be? Or it might even be a series of things that you've really seen. What sort of impact do you think you've had?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's coincidence, but certainly within the last 3 years, a lot of the big hotel companies have announced programs specifically for women. So,
Right.
for example, we actually work quite closely here with Hyatt UK and Ireland.
Mhm.
They introduced their Women at Hyatt program, which has been tremendous.
Wow.
Um, that was in the last year and a half. Um, Hilton, Marriott, they've had women in leadership programs. I feel like companies are paying more attention now.
Sure.
So we are moving the needle. I think what's so exciting actually is that the generation of women now who have made it into these leadership roles are
Mm.
very intentional and conscious about making the experience for the women coming up behind them to
Mm.
be better than their own. So that's
Right.
really,
Yes.
there's a real effort happening that
Mm.
I'm excited that we get to cover. Also, we're seeing a movement for more women speakers at conferences. I'm sure have
Yes.
been to a lot of the
Yeah,
hotel
yeah.
conferences, and it's basically a lot of dudes up there. So now that's
Unfortunately, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
so that's changing. We actually just covered a big conference in the U.S. called the Hunter
Mm.
investment conference, and they, for the first time in their 35-year history, had 51% female speakers. So, I
Yep.
mean, that's a huge milestone. And I think that this kind of progress is infectious, and we
Mm.
will see this happening at other conferences. And we need more women to be viewed as thought leaders in their industry, in their aspect of the industry, which is like for example, Kat McLeod, who you had at your
Yes.
women's event. I heard
Yeah.
her speak at a Travel Massive event not long ago, and she was
Mm.
amazing, and she
Yeah.
knows so much. So it's not about putting women on like a diversity panel. It's about
Mm.
putting women in their areas of expertise as thought leaders and speakers.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Yeah.
and what we need to do actually is also encourage women to say yes to these opportunities. It's, one of the things, the feedback that we've gotten from conference organizers is that, well, we asked women and they said no. So the question then becomes, well, who are you asking? Like, are you going to the same 5 women every time? Or
Yeah.
have you
Yeah.
broadened your scopes and like you're asking women at different levels and things like that? And then
Mm.
also asking the women, like, hey, have you been turning stuff down, or are you saying yes to things? So it's kind of approaching it from different ways. And that I think is a really exciting kind of emerging area of progress that we're seeing.
Yeah.
And then also I'm part of this organization, and I'm really excited to see what's happening with my colleagues in there. It's called Female Founders in Hospitality.
Okay.
And that is a group of female entrepreneurs specific to hospitality. It's started by a woman called Nina Cleveland. And she has a company also called Lanyard Stays.
Right.
But yeah, so Nina has really gotten together, and I think they're on there about the 6th cohort. Women doing interesting things. A lot of it's with technology. So I feel like women are taking this opportunity, maybe, post pandemic, where either they
Yeah.
were laid off from something or just in kind of a lot of people have reevaluated their life choices during the pandemic. And a lot of women are going into the tech and entrepreneur space. So
Right.
that's an area where we're seeing a lot of interesting progress. And then, big companies, I mean, I kind of alluded to this before, but the big
Yeah.
companies really offering more flexibility too. So they
Right.
realize that, look, there is a labor shortage in a lot of areas
Mm.
of the world. And they've noticed that, hey, it's actually better business for us to keep the amazing women that we have and
Yeah.
work with them in the different phases of their life, to keep them in management, keep them moving up the ranks. So again, mentioning that we are seeing interesting programs for mentorship and leadership training for women.
Yeah. And again, these sort of trends and these positive changes, these are things that you've seen in all these different sort of conferences, but also the meetings that you're going to, not just in the UK, but all over the world, right? Like you're
Yeah.
experiencing this firsthand.
Yes, I mean, I should mention I moderated a panel in February for Forbes Travel Guide, which is,
Right.
they verify luxury.
Mm.
And they had a conference of about 650 people
Wow.
from travel. It could be, hoteliers, entrepreneurs, thought leaders. They had about 50 travel advisors there. And they specifically did a whole effort around women in hospitality, had
Yeah.
this amazing panel conversation. And then they also had more than 50% female speakers. They had
Right.
35% people from different, marginalized backgrounds as speakers. So I do see this as a really exciting development, that there's just going to be
Yeah.
more diversity in, conferences and these times when people come together to think about how do we move the industry forward.
Yeah. And I think that's the diversity bit is absolute, really, isn't it? It's one of those where it's just so needed. I mean, I remember this is obviously so there's something that we hadn't spoken about previously, but I remember when arranging the women in leadership event that I did, and I was so self-conscious because there was two parts to it. And I spoke to a couple of people, I think you were one of them. But I spoke to Kat and I spoke to somebody else about it, and I was sort of saying, it's a women's event, and I'm organizing it, and I was taking it so incredibly seriously. And I remember saying to Kat, I really want to have somebody else involved in this because I don't feel it's actually even appropriate for me to be organizing this on my own. Because and although it was all coming from absolutely the right place and a genuine space, I felt that there was that immediate sort of risk of seeming to virtue signal and all these
Hmm.
things, when in fact it was coming from a very genuine space. And I suppose my question is almost sort of what what suggestions would you have for myself and other men in the industry to be that ally? Because that sort of
Hmm.
comes up quite a lot, and the word
Yeah.
ally. But what does it really mean to, I suppose, to you, Emily? What does an ally mean to you in this industry? What can we be doing better, or what can we be doing in general to drive this positive change, in your opinion?
I think the male allyship piece is so important.
Yeah,
I've certainly had many, including you, Stuart Greif from Forbes Travel Guide,
right.
others who've really taken the time to try to help me move Hertelier forward. So I'm grateful for that. But I think in the industry overall, we are seeing this. In fact, when I did the talk at the Forbes Travel Guide,
Yeah,
Brian McHugh, who's a VP for operations with Marriott Luxury, he was on the panel. So I think it is very important to have men in the room, and they are interested. In fact, it may surprise you, about 30 to 40% of our readers are men. So they are
really,
really
right, okay,
interested. Yeah, yeah. They're really interested. They
right.
want to know, like you say, how to be a better ally to women. And I think
Mm,
the main thing is the mentorship piece, really, taking women under your wing and helping them in their careers. And then more importantly, even is the sponsorship piece where you talk
yeah,
about them when opportunities come up and they're not in the room.
yes,
So, I think it's just also being conscious about who you're helping, who you're putting forward. One of the things that we talk about a lot in these different conversations is what
mm,
are the barriers that women face.
sure,
And, it's just the unconscious bias. It's like people they just think about what they know. It's like it's unconscious. So you don't
mm,
really think about the fact that, oh, so and so isn't speaking much in the meeting, or somebody just talked over her, and it just feels normal, and like we need to call out those behaviors. So I guess the
right,
second thing I would say to men is call out the behaviors. If you see something, sexist
yeah,
behavior, you got to call it out. And then also, when you call it out, you kind of just like raise the awareness. And once you raise the awareness, then you can enact change. So,
yeah.
I would say the sponsorship piece, the mentorship piece, and then call it out when you see in meetings a woman not talking or being talked over, or also the gender pay gap. I mean, that why does that even exist?
No, well, hey, that's almost a discussion in itself, isn't it?
Yeah.
Wow.
you
But if
know
I'd say with regards to again coming back to that, you sort of your position is traveling all over the place, listening to all these different discussions, finding out and sort of documenting that for the world to understand or for the world to then read and sort of take on board. Obviously, there's so much going on all the time, but from your sort of perspective, and I know there's going to be so many on your list, but what are you most excited about right now? Out of all the things that are going on in the industry, and I know that Hertelier are there flying the flag for women in hospitality, absolutely. But what really excites you right now? What's going on in the industry that excites you?
I would say overall, just the attention being paid to becoming a more conscious industry in
Sure.
general. So whether it's sustainability or equality, we as an industry are talking about the issues, and I think that's again really a very, very important first step.
Yeah.
raising awareness. And then also, I see a lot of companies putting programs in place to measure progress. So whether that's, you know, sustainability or, you know, for
Yeah.
women or minorities, to really impact change by measuring it. I mean, I say this a lot, but you know, what gets measured gets done.
Mm.
So I think the fact that there's this raise awareness, and this, you know, ability to measure things now, and I think technology plays a big role in that. Certainly in the sustainability, I mean, we covered an amazing program that's actually being done out of the Hilton EMEA F&B initiative. They've partnered with some technology, and they've reduced their food waste by 62% at
Right.
breakfast. So like they're rolling that out. They rolled it out in EMEA. I think they were at about 28 hotels, and now they're
Mm.
taking it broader. So, you know, we're seeing a lot of innovation. And Emma Banks is the VP spearheading that. I feel like you do see a lot of women spearheading these sort of innovative
Sure.
applications. The other thing that because I also am still a reporter about luxury travel. I
Yeah.
feel there's a big movement in luxury travel, you know, to focus on wellness and meaningful travel. There's a real growth now in experience-led travel.
Yes.
And then, you know, I feel like there's a lot of innovation around the corner. I just was on a panel about women and technology. And there was, of course, the conversation about AI. And there's just some
Of course.
really exciting stuff that's happening around AI that is just going to improve efficiencies,
Yeah.
but also allow hoteliers to really focus on customer service in a way
Yeah.
that, you know, you're not going to be bogged down with answering calls at the front desk that's like, what time does the gym close? Because now a computer can do that. So I
Yeah.
mean, stuff like that I actually think is tremendous progress and will ultimately make employees happier and, you know, more interesting service.
No, absolutely, absolutely. Again, I knew that there would be a fair few on there that would be really exciting you because there is a lot going on. And from our conversations previously and just before we were jumping on here, and even just listening to everything that's been going on in the last few months, not just even the last year, but just the last few months, it just seems that there is so much going on. I suppose with that, then, what's the future hold for Hertelier? What's going on with you guys? What's happening over the next 12 months? Have you got is there anything big coming? Is there anything going on within you
Yeah.
guys?
Well, interestingly, so we've just celebrated our third anniversary. Last year, for the first
Congratulations.
time, thank you. We took on some sponsors, so we were doing some sponsor content, but we also started doing events. So we've done now two in London, and we did one in New York and one in Miami. So they've
Brilliant.
all sold out. Women love the events. They love to get together. I mean, we did one at the Athenaeum in January. It
Oh,
was
wow.
called for 8:30 with the idea that we would start at 9 with we had a tremendous panel with, you know, women in all different phases of their careers talking about
Yes.
change and adaptability. And, you know, would you believe it? By 10 till 9, everybody was there. Everyone was like, the room was already like buzzing with people. And then I literally was kicking people out at 12. Like it was supposed to end at 10:30.
Well,
And they just, you know,
I
women
remember
want
I
to
was
get
supposed
together
to
and
come.
chat.
I was supposed
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
come.
you signed up for that.
I was in hospital, unfortunately. But
Oh,
my colleague,
sorry to hear that. Yeah.
yeah, my
Kathy was,
colleague, yeah, my
it
colleague
was,
went.
yeah.
So Roxanne, and I think Kelly might have been there, but
Yeah,
Roxanne was
Kelly.
definitely there,
Kelly. Yeah.
and she loved it. She
Yes,
loved
thank
it.
you. Yeah, she was into it. She asked a lot of
Yeah.
questions. You know, there was just like this really open and honest dialogue and, you know, showing some vulnerability and people just really learn a lot from that. You really learn a lot from other
Yeah.
women. So super excited about the events.
Amazing.
So we have another one planned for London, I think in June. We're still working on it, and then we will do
Great.
some more in Florida, probably in September. We may do an event in New York in May if I can get over there, and then you know we're looking farther afield. We hope to do an event in Dubai. We're planning to launch a podcast this year, so we're excited about that.
Fantastic.
And we are working on an exciting new project with Hilton about around their F&B, so that's quite exciting. And yeah, I mean, so we have other things in the work. I would encourage people to sign up for our
Yes.
newsletter, which is on, if you put it in the show notes. Yeah, so it's like that's the best way to keep up with Hertelier, and then also just follow us on LinkedIn, and we post everything there.
Absolutely. Brilliant. Well, Emily, thank you so much. I know how busy you are, and I know that we've wanted to do this for a while. So I just want to say a massive thank you for taking the time out of your diary, to giving us some insights from the global world of hospitality and the women within it, and the changes that are going on. It's been a real pleasure hearing you.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity, Thomas. I'm really a big fan of your show, and I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me.
Oh, no, it's been my pleasure. Um, for anybody, it might be worth me saying this now, actually. For anybody that does want to subscribe, I will pop the link to your newsletter down below. So anybody that wants to subscribe to that, I will pop the link there just so it's nice and easy for you to click on it. I have no doubt that Emily would love to hear anybody that wants to collaborate with her on various projects or would like her to talk about various events that might be coming up. So please do connect with Emily. I will tag her in this as well. To any of the partners that Edwards and Finn have within that tech space, I know that Emily is really keen to have a chat with you. So what I'll do as well is I'll be getting in touch with a few people, but if anybody in our tech community would like to talk to Emily about potential partnerships going forward, I know that she'd be very keen to hear from you. So again, I'll pop all the details down below for you guys to get in touch. But again, Emily, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Guys, last note on the episode, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We are trying to bring you really great content on a weekly basis every Thursday morning, with great guests just like Emily. So don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave us a comment below. Let us know what you think. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.